You are sitting in a parking lot after work, staring at a repair estimate on your phone, $900 for the transmission sensor and labor, and your checking account has maybe $300 in it until Friday. You need this car to get to work. You know that. But the only way to cover the bill right now is the credit card that already has a balance on it. And the interest on that card is not small, so you sit there running the same math everybody runs. If I charge this, I am adding a payment I already cannot comfortably make. But if I do not fix the car, I lose the income that pays for everything else. That is not a hypothetical. Less than half of Americans say they could cover a $1,000 emergency with cash or savings they can actually reach. The reason that number stays so stubborn is not because people are careless. It is because cash buffers and high interest debt compete for the same dollars, and most advice treats them like two separate problems when they are actually one connected system. A small buffer prevents the next emergency from becoming expensive debt, but existing expensive debt drains the cash flow you need to build that buffer in the first place. That loop is the mechanism, and breaking it requires a specific sequence, not just good intentions. I am Sam from Simply Money, and I have spent way too much time studying why some people escape that loop, while others keep circling it even when their income goes up. If you have ever felt stuck between knowing you need savings and knowing your debt is costing you money every month, subscribe, because that tension is exactly what this channel is built to work through. Today, I'm going to walk you through a staged decision framework for how to route your next available dollars when savings feel impossible and debt feels urgent at the same time. Let me start with what actually happens inside a budget when that $1,000 hit lands and there is no buffer to absorb it. When that $1,000 hit lands and there is no buffer, it does not just cost $1,000. It costs whatever the credit card charges you to carry that balance forward, plus whatever else breaks while you are still paying it off. Go back to that parking lot. $900 goes on a card already carrying a balance at 27%. Minimum payments stretch the payoff past a year, and by the time it is gone, interest alone has added roughly $200 to the real cost of that repair. But here's the part that makes it worse. During those 12 months of repayment, if anything else goes wrong, a medical copay, a busted appliance, a second car issue, there is still no buffer, so that shock goes on the card too, and now the balance is compounding on top of the first one. That is not bad luck repeating itself. That is a system with no absorption layer. And less than half of Americans say they could cover a $1,000 emergency with cash or ready access to funds, which means this system is running inside a lot of households right now. The mechanism has a name, and once you see it, a lot of confusing financial advice starts making more sense. Call it the buffer debt loop. When you have no cash buffer, emergencies become debt. When you are carrying high interest debt, the monthly payments drain the cash flow you would need to build a buffer. Each side feeds the other. It is not that people are choosing wrong, it is that the two most common pieces of advice, save an emergency fund and pay off your debt, are competing for the exact same dollars, and without a sequence, both goals stall. Only about 3 in 10 people say they would actually pay a $1,000 emergency straight from savings. Most of the rest would borrow, sell something, cut elsewhere, or simply not know what they would do. That gap between wanting a buffer and actually having one is where the loop lives. This is not a niche situation. Nearly 3 in 10 Americans say they have more credit card debt right now than they have in emergency savings. And to put that in national scale, total credit card balances ended 2025 at roughly $1.28 trillion. That is not a fringe problem affecting a small unlucky group. It is a structural pattern running through millions of balance sheets. When people have no emergency savings at all, the consequences are not just emotional. Research from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that about 40% of consumers with zero emergency savings had debt 60 or more days past due. And roughly 35% of those same consumers had overdrafted in the past year. So the damage of an empty buffer is not just the interest on the next emergency. It is late fees, overdraft charges, credit damage, and a compounding loss of financial options that makes each month after the shock harder than the one before. Here is where the math changes the picture. Say you owe $4,000 on a card at 26%, and you also have zero saved, you find an extra $200 a month. The instinct most people have is to throw it all at the card because mathematically, 26% interest is brutal and it feels irresponsible to save while that balance exists. But watch what happens if another emergency hits 3 months in. You have paid $600 toward the card, which is real progress, but your savings are still at zero. So the new $800 shock goes right back on the card, and now you are nearly back where you started, except you also lost 3 months. Compare that with a different sequence using the same $200. For the first 3 months, you split it. $100 toward the card minimum, $100 into a separate savings account you do not touch. After 3 months, you have $300 saved and the card balance is slightly lower. Now the same $800 emergency lands. This time, $300 of it comes from savings and only $500 goes on the card. The debt increase is smaller, the interest hit is smaller, and you kept forward momentum instead of resetting completely. That $300 buffer did not eliminate the problem, but it kept the loop from restarting at full speed, and that is where a lot of people need to rethink their first instinct. The common belief is that saving while you owe high interest debt is always mathematically wrong. It sounds smart, it sounds disciplined, but it ignores the probability of another shock arriving before the debt is gone. More than half of Americans say inflation is still making it harder for them to save for emergencies, which means the pressure that creates these shocks is not going away. If you dump every dollar into debt and keep zero in reserve, you are making a bet that nothing else will go wrong during the payoff window. For most households, that bet loses. Research cited by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that people with even $250 to $500 saved do measurably better after a financial shock than people with almost nothing. That is not 6 months of expenses. That is a few $100s doing structural work. So the stage sequence is not complicated, but the order matters, and it looks a little different depending on where you are starting. If you are currently at zero savings and carrying high interest debt, the first job is a small starter buffer, a few $100s. Before you go aggressive on the card, it does not need to be a full emergency fund yet. It just needs to be enough that the next surprise does not automatically become new high interest debt. If you already have a few hundred saved, but your card balance is large and the rate is painful, your job shifts. Keep the buffer in place. Stop adding to it for now and redirect everything extra toward the most expensive revolving balance. Not the biggest balance necessarily, but the one with the highest interest rate, because that is the one draining the most cash flow every month. And if you are somewhere in between, already making progress on debt, but feeling like the buffer is too thin, the answer is usually to pause the aggressive payoff just long enough to rebuild the floor before resuming. The goal is not to hoard savings while 26% interest runs. The goal is to make sure every step forward is protected by the one before it. About a third of Americans say building savings and paying down car debt matter equally to them right now. That instinct is closer to correct than most people realize, because the answer is not one or the other. It is both, in a specific order, with a specific threshold that tells you when to shift your weight. The decision rule is this: if your liquid savings are below a few $100s, the next dollar should go toward the buffer, even if you owe high interest debt, because the cost of the next emergency hitting bear is almost always higher than the interest you save by rushing the payoff. Once you cross that starter threshold, shift hard toward the most expensive balance. And if you ever have to tap the buffer, pause the aggressive payoff and rebuild the floor first before resuming. That is the whole framework. You are not choosing between saving and paying debt. You are sequencing them, so each move protects the one after it. The buffer prevents the next shock from becoming new debt. The debt paydown frees up the cash flow that makes the buffer easier to rebuild, and the loop, instead of dragging you backward, starts pushing you forward. The next time you're sitting in that parking lot doing the math, the question is not whether you can afford the bill. The question is whether your system has a buffer between the emergency and the credit card. If it does, even a small one, the cost of that bad day drops. And if it does not, now you know exactly which dollar to move first.